Hi there, everyone. Today is the 13th of April, and I have a lot to talk about today. I'm not sure if I'm going to do this in several videos or one long one. I'll just see how much I end up saying and decide organically. Okay, so first thing I'd like to say is to talk about what's occurring in the third dimensional reality. Obviously, I'm going to be looking at multiple dimensions, multiple aspects to reality, and telling you the things that I have been shown over the last few days. So starting with the third dimensional reality, I've got a lot of people watching my videos now who are not either spiritually awake or particularly are even interested in that, and that's absolutely fine. And glad to have you watching, and you're more than welcome on this channel. You don't have to believe in a word that I say regarding higher dimensional entities or angels or extraterrestrials or anything like that. What I would say to you is take all that, because you don't have to change your belief system. You don't have to believe any of that. So what I would say to you is take all that as metaphor. Just think to yourself, when I'm saying these things, when I'm speaking about beings talking to me or places I'm taken in the universe or whatever it may be, just think, well, that's metaphor, because that is actually true. It is metaphor. So that's where you should take this. To those who are familiar with my work and have followed me for, since I got online, or for several years, then you can take this however you please, and you will resonate with what is metaphor, what is literal, and you'll have your own connection to the information. So I want to be able to reach people who are in many different ways of thinking. So that's why I'm saying that. So let's look at the third dimensional reality first of all. And what I'd like to say, there's so much going on in the third dimension, and many ways of perceiving the third dimension at the moment, many different perspectives, and they're all correct in different ways. Within that correct perception of the third dimensional reality, when I say third dimensional reality, I just mean the physical world around you. There are individuals who hold perspectives that are completely false as well. So it's trying to find which is a correct and valid perspective that holds truth, and which is misleading and which is false. It's all jumbled up together. Now, for people who are obviously working at the moment in quite a profound way with social media, simply because we're not going out, we in the UK can go out once a day, but a lot of people are online now more than ever before, and there are many newly awakened individuals who have either been awake for a while but have been very quiet about their beliefs, not something that they want to necessarily talk about. It's just private research. But because all this has happened and we have a global pandemic and a global lockdown, they are obviously coming to the fore with what they know, and they want to step up and speak. And I think that's wonderful, and I absolutely encourage everyone to speak. What's actually happening is the entire truth movement and spiritual movement, up to a point, are being attacked right now. And I'm sure anyone who's out there in any capacity talking about all this stuff, they will be aware of those attacks. These attacks are not just coming in from unseen entities, vibrations, or cabal operatives. These attacks are coming in from the people. We're trying so hard to become unified with the people, because intrinsically we know that is where our power is. And we know that when we unify with the people, this is what is going to take us forward as a planet. Now, that is the plan for us on the side of right and the light, if you will. We are going to unify and come together. But it's difficult for us who are trying to unify when there are others who are absolutely rejecting that unification, because they're seeing us, those that are spreading truth, as the enemy. You have to understand why they're doing that. Everyone's reality has been shaken. Everyone's had the rug pulled from underneath their feet, as I've said before. Some of these individuals are thinking to themselves, gosh, what's happening here? I'm not really getting the truth, and I want to go and investigate. Things are not adding up, and I want to go and investigate. I'm not getting it from this area, mainstream news. I'm going to go and look in this area, alternative news, whatever it may be. But others are very rooted in the security of the narrative, and they are completely invested in what they're being told on mainstream news or wherever they are accessing their information, and it keeps them safe and secure despite what's happening in the world. To them, it is a virus, so we need to be very concerned about that, and we need to be socially distancing. All of that is their paradigm. Anything outside of that is causing more stress and anxiety than they can handle. They're already overloaded with the third dimensional situation. So anyone coming forward presenting a different narrative is going to cause them extreme inner turmoil. So the way that they are able to stay within some kind of control, and you have to lose control in order to find the truth, but they don't want to lose control. Losing control is very, very difficult. It is very, very challenging. So what they do to maintain control is band together with other individuals that are of the same like mind, and they're attacking the people who are outside the narrative, if you will. You have people who've just woken up who are attacking the people who are not awake, and they will also attack people who are awake a bit further than they are, because they've just dealt with one narrative and then they're discovering, hang on a minute, there's even more of a narrative. Oh, that's too far. So I can just about understand that this bit is true, but that's too far, and they can't go there. So you've got these layers of awakening at the moment, and as each person jumps from one level of awakening to another, they can either move quite smoothly through this, and it will depend on their disposition, their personality, their life experiences, and how much trauma that they're holding and how much trauma that they have released, which is why the 9 have said for so many years, work on yourself, and all the other spiritual teachers have said the same things: work on yourself, release your trauma, dig deep into the shadow, integrate the darkness, all of those things. So you've actually got this situation going on, and it's all playing out on social media predominantly. It isn't really happening outside too much. It is in pockets, but not too much. Everyone is social distancing. A lot of people are not going out at all. And it's happening online, and it's happening in the smallest of communities. So what I'm trying to say here is this is the Great Awakening. And on one hand, it's amazing that people are waking up. People you never thought would wake up to this are. But one is also realizing that the Great Awakening is not necessarily always a blissful, wonderful thing. It can actually be quite difficult. It's difficult for the teachers because they are being attacked. And I wanted to address that point. The teachers that are teaching others that are able to deal with online attacks have probably had online attacks for many years, and that's fine when those people are strangers and people that they don't know. Now, because we're in a situation where the control is so evident and individuals are clinging on to the current reality desperately to maintain control, you may find that people attacking you, or at least standing against your narrative and trying to change your mind and get you back where they are, will be people you care about and people you love. This could be long-term friends that you've known for 30 odd years or longer, that you would never dream of even discussing this with, because you know that it's something you keep private and you talk about with the people who are awake, and you don't really tell the people who are asleep. But now it's there in everyone's faces. You can't really hide it. So you may find that people you've known for a long time, people that you thought you could say anything to, and they would accept what you're saying because you love each other. And it's difficult for many starseeds at the moment, teachers, way showers, starseeds, light workers. It's difficult when those people that you trusted, that you thought you could say anything to should the time arise, are actually rejecting what you're saying and getting angry with you and attacking you. If you've got a good relationship with that person, yes, there's going to be a bit of disharmony and possibly a bit of strain between you. But if you're both intelligent and you're both aware of your own intelligence and your own connection, and you love each other, then you may get through it. But it still does put a bit of disharmony there. I think one of the worst things really is, and this is happening to many starseeds, light workers, aware individuals, truthers, whatever you want to call yourself, that which individuals call conspiracy theorists, whatever label you give to yourself, or whether you give yourself a label or not. One of the worst things is when a parent is faced with their own child, and their own child is looking at the parent with this look of horror on their face, and you know that they're thinking, oh my goodness, she is insane. You're stood there knowing your child thinks you really are insane. So that's kind of happening now, and that's difficult for us to navigate, and we're having to navigate all of that with everything else going on in all these other dimensions. It isn't all negative, it's incredibly positive as well. That in itself is a really stretched polarity, and we're having to make choices every day, every second, every hour. We could be creating a different sort of fork in the road for us with all of these different emotions that we go through. So really what's occurring right now in the third dimension is a social media information warfare. So what do you do about this? Because do you get involved in debates? I would say no, most of the time. But a lot of the truthers and light workers go into debates because there's a loved one in that debate, or it may be that they don't know anyone in the debate, but their intention is to help. And one of the worst things, again, is when you offer help and say, look, I can assist you here. Look at this link, watch this video, or take on board this particular viewpoint. And you are offering this assistance with genuine caring for that person, and you're instantly attacked. And you think, what have I done wrong? So all of this is happening to the starseeds right now. The starseeds, the light workers, the truthers, the way showers, the conspiracy theorists. I really don't like that term at all. That's happening to all of us. So we're all aware of this information warfare going on. Now, the individuals who have the vibration that the 9 and I would call crystal, they don't really have to get involved with this. They can remove themselves somewhat from that drama, because their predominant role is a holding of energy. It's a holding of frequency. It's a holding of a reality. So they're healers. They are sending out healing energy, and it's very, very needed and very, very important. Then you've got a smaller group of individuals that I would call the blue ray individuals that can choose to get involved in debates, but really they're more technological, more factual, and incredibly intelligent and have a lot of information. They will want to perhaps listen to debate, but not necessarily lend their energy to it. And they're able to make a choice as to whether they lend their energy to a heated debate or a discussion or not. Indigo individuals, I know because I'm indigo myself, it's really difficult to stay out of debates. The reason being is the indigo individuals have a code within their fields. They were born with this. Again, for those who are new, just take all this as metaphor. For those who know my work, you know what I'm saying here. That code creates a certain vibration within that individual where they spot truth and lies very, very easily and very, very clearly. Not only do they spot truth and lies very easily and clearly, they call them out. So when something is written or produced or spoken of that isn't true, and they know it to be so in their being, they feel compelled to speak up and say, this isn't true. you are following a path that is false, etc., etc. Indigos were born with this code for a reason. And the reason is what we are going through now. This is the indigo uprising. This is the indigo intelligence that's coming out, the indigo frequency, the indigo revolution. That's happening right now. So all of these individuals are being called right now because that indigo code is being activated within them. What this also means for the indigos is when it comes to authority, when it comes to control, one of the most predominant aspects of that code is that they will not be controlled. So it's not that they're some kind of rebellious person. Well, yes, they may appear that way. What it is it's not that they reject control and authority. It's not that they are deliberately rebellious or, you know, anti-establishment kind of people. The code within the indigo frequency, once activated, puts you into a place where you cannot accept control. It's not that you reject it and you don't want it. You cannot accept it. You physically can't. It's in your auric field as a code, preventing you from accepting control. Why? Because of what's happening now and what is yet to happen over the coming weeks, months, however long it may be, years if you like. There's changes going on many, many levels that we are now going forward into. I think most aware people will realize the world is never going to be the same again. It's that old world has finished and we are beginning a new one. And what is yet to come is the indigo individuals are needed for what is yet to come and what is happening now. No one is aware of how many indigo individuals that there are. Even I am not aware of how many that there are. All I can say is there's far more than people realize and far more than the dark ones would estimate. Many are not activated yet, but are set to be activated in the coming times ahead. So these individuals cannot accept control. They will accept an authority if the authority is fair and just. So this is very much about recognizing truth versus falsehoods, recognizing integrity and sovereignty within authority as opposed to a control or a domination or a tyranny. They can recognize that. So these indigos are programmed to recognize these things, and the other is justice. It's got to be fair. If justice is given that is unfair and corrupt, the indigos are going to call it out. The indigo code is a frequency in and of itself. And that is a living intelligence, and that has come into these individuals that have been born as indigo. There are individuals that are hybrid crystal indigos that have both. So they'll be quite torn at the moment because they'll want to just sort of go and sit in the garden and soak up the sun and meditate and send healing to the planet. And the other part of them is wanting to speak, recognize truth, get involved in debates, etc., etc. So I'm not saying that indigos should get involved in debates. It's actually wise not to. But sometimes you do feel drawn in, especially when a loved one is in there, or if someone else that you know shares your philosophy and is being attacked, you want to step in and defend them. It's okay to do all of these things if it's your choice. There's no right or wrong. Within this whole social media information warfare and this sort of split between awake individuals in various ways and people who are still asleep, you have these people who are still asleep that are policing those that are awake. And they're policing one another as well. So you could have a whole load of just the asleep people who are totally entrenched in the current narrative. They're policing one another. So the unity that those who are called to move forward and create the new earth, the unity we are being called to is very fragmented amongst those who are asleep. And we as awake individuals have to make allowances for that. And it's very frustrating and very difficult. One has to use all the tools that one has at one's disposal. Everything that we've learned spiritually, we have to find and access and utilize to be able to deal with this. So when I say people are policing one another, I mean, in my area, you've got someone going out twice a day instead of once. There is a number that you can call or an email to actually report those people. If people are not social distancing properly, you can report them. I did hear on American news the other day, one of the state governors calling for snitches, and that those snitches would be paid for snitching on their neighbours. So we've got all of this going on. I mean, I shouldn't laugh, it's absolutely dreadful. The reason why it's funny to someone who has been aware of this has been aware of this plan and plot for many, many years. It's such an obvious game that's being played. It's so expected. It's like when something comes out, you laugh because you think, oh my goodness, I knew they'd do that, you know, because you know how they work. And it is awful. And I'm not laughing because I think it's funny. I'm smiling and laughing because it's just so obvious. And I think anyone who understands all this and has been awake for a long time, what else can you do really than just sort of, yeah, I kind of, it's so obvious, it's so predictable. That's the word I'm looking for. One has known that that is how it would go. None of this is a surprise. As I've said before, to those who are awake, none of this is a surprise. So the people are policing the people. It's not just the authority that's policing the people, it's the people themselves. This is a social media information warfare. It's easy to deal with when it's friends that you're perhaps not too emotionally attached to and involved with, but it's really difficult when it's people you love and care about, long-term friends and family. I'm seeing that the majority of starseeds are dealing with this right now, truthers and light workers. I'm seeing that we're all dealing with this right now because everybody's got the narrative is in front of them. It's not something hidden anymore. All of this has a positive side to it. And the positive side is this great awakening, which has this challenge to it. This great awakening is not easy. It's really difficult to be woken up right now because you're dragged from a reality that you thought was real, and you rebel as much as you can against this new paradigm and do everything you can to stay within the control of the old narrative, even if it means hating on people that you thought you loved. It's kind of like Trump derangement syndrome gone crazy. It's not Trump derangement syndrome anymore. It's being outside of the current narrative derangement syndrome. And it's like massive and huge and everywhere. But on the positive, the being at home and controlled in this way, so being in lockdown, we're separated from the others in our community, other than seeing them in the local shop. We're separated from our family, we're separated from our friends, we're put into a place of isolation. Now, on the one hand, that is a sort of a form of psychological warfare or torture, if you will, on a psychological and spiritual level and emotional level. That's true. But humans have more resilience than many people realize. And those that are sort of controlling this whole show, the cabal, deep state, Illuminati, dark controllers, dark factions, dark elite, whatever you want to call them, there's only a certain point that they can understand humans. I'm not saying they're not human. They are incarnated in a human body like us. They are humans, but they're different. They're not the same kind of humans that the rest of us are. And many of you know what I mean when I say that. So what they don't realize is the resilience within humanity. And this resilience comes from the energetic system of the human body. It is a light body aspect, if you will. And what that actually does is the more, I think that wasn't a gunshot, by the way, that sound. I think somebody's just got a flat tire all of a sudden. We don't have guns over here, I'm sure you know that. When someone is isolated away from others, the physical body is isolated. So there are other parts of the body that start to make up for that. The energetic system and the signaling within the energetic body starts to reach out more. Now, this occurs even with people asleep. They might not be able to be aware of what's happening and analyze it, but it will happen to all humans. So the more you are isolated and separated, the more the signals reach out, because we are a collective mind. We are a collective. We are individual, but the humans on a planet are a collective entity. And we need to be with other aspects of that entity, even if they're not actually human. We can find that unity in animals and also in the non-physical and in the plant kingdom and in nature. But what often happens, well, what will happen is when one is isolated, one reaches out. So what actually happens there is telepathy gets stronger. Now, individuals who are not aware of this and have not exercised telepathy in any kind will be in a state of confusion that they can't understand. They can't give words to what's happening to them other than I'm going crazy. You know, I'm actually going crazy. Those who've been working on themselves and taking a spiritual path, they'll be able to focus that telepathy and understand what is happening and utilize it. So hence we have another level to the Great Awakening. And what we're getting there is downloads more than ever, telepathic links with other beings more than ever, and with one another more than ever, dreams that are very profound and very meaningful with messages more than ever. And I'm talking about, you know, full-on visits to light ships and speaking with other beings and the whole realm of the non-physical intelligences. The telepathy is now at a level that it has never been at. So one can utilize that. At the same time, one needs to do whatever they can to assist those who are in that mode of going crazy, because they're seeing everything in their reality around them as in lockdown and virus, but they've got stuff going on in their minds that they don't understand as well. That's another reason why they're attacking those outside of the box, because they've got all this going on in their head as well. They're not able to hold the control. And this is the reason why this whole plot isn't going to work, because it can't. It's not possible for the human organism as a planet to be controlled in this way. Number one, we're way too indigo. And indigo frequencies are not just confined to one place, they spread. And the minute you catch the indigo, you cannot be controlled. So it's not going to work. The indigo frequency is everywhere. So I've said a lot. I'm just going to go through these notes and see what I have missed. I've said about that, you know, the truthers are under attack, possibly more so than crystals and spiritual speakers. Anyone spreading truth, or even just giving people small spoon-fed aspects of that truth are under attack. There's a huge movement now coming in from the cabal to shut the truthers down. It's only working to a point, and it's only working with those who are asleep. It's just making them hate the truthers more, which is the idea. And so the cabal can sit back and think, well, we can't really get to these truthers because there's too many of them and they're too indigo. Let the people do it. That's not going to work either, because of the domino effect and the 100th monkey effect that's going to wake the sleepers up. And the things that are coming. The things that are coming are way more than what we've had so far. There's yet more that's going to wake people up. if they're clinging on to their control now in the middle of a global pandemic and a global shutdown, well, how are they going to do that when the next things come? There's more yet on both sides, negative and positive. We are riding through these waves right now, and I understand that there is a lot of fear and uncertainty. That's been in me too, as I said in my last video, and the 9, and recently other beings as well that I wouldn't necessarily say are part of the 9 have been coming to talk to me. So I'm going to talk about all that. Okay, so what the advice from the 9 is when it comes to getting involved with debates, and I don't just mean a nasty debate, I mean a conversation. It could be comments on a video, comments on an article, it could be your own status that you're putting up on social media, it could be stuff you're saying on your own website, whatever it is. The 9's advice is, don't get too involved to the point where your emotions are caught up. Then you're lost in the debate. Stay in this place of observer and calm, and rather than debating and giving huge great data dumps, data downloads to these people, spoon feeding is annoying them as well. So the best thing to do is plant seeds. You kind of know how Q does it. Q doesn't come out and tell everyone the truth. I haven't been a huge Q follower, but I have seen several posts, so I understand how Q does it. I am not saying for you to sit there and write down a little sort of Q style narrative. You know, I'm saying plant seeds. That's what the 9 are saying, plant seeds. And this whole seeds thing right now is absolutely massive because it's multi-dimensional and multi-layered regarding seeds. So the 9 said that the first 13 days of April would be very significant, from the 1st of April to the 13th, that is a section of time that they were calling the 3 days of darkness. So it isn't literally 3 days, it's spanning these 13 days, and the energy of it goes on further. There may well be 3 days of something in the future. I'm not saying that the 3 days is not a literal thing, but in those 13 days, the darkness is the separation, the going within, the retreat, the sort of taking the hermit path, being away from all others into darkness, as in you are taken away. The Cabal would look at it perhaps as isolation or imprisonment. The darkness is that. But what that creates is more light, because you can't have the darkness without the light. That always, when it comes to the balance, darkness and light is not completely and utterly equal. In a positively polarized society, which we are on this planet is a positively polarized planet, or humanity is, the light will always be a little bit more than the dark. So the balance we want to keep is the light a little bit more than the dark. Now, where we're going is far more light and less dark, more and more and more and more, until the planet is fully light and no dark. That's where we're going. Now, is that going to take a month? No, that's long term. So anyone who understands all of this will know what I mean. So when you go into this darkness, that creates the striving for light within you. So if you are not able to speak to people physically, you will become more telepathic. If you're not able to touch people, you will move into higher connection. The higher realms will be more available to you than ever, because the physical is being shut away. If you look at people who have certain disabilities in ways, they will compensate for those, or illnesses and, you know, chronic health conditions. Then there'll be a compensatory factor in order for that organism, that structure, that ecosystem, whether it's a planet or whether it's a humanity or whether it's a person, will strive for this balance. So if you shut humanity away, there's going to be a compensation, and the compensation is the Great Awakening. Now, these first 13 days of April, this 3 days of darkness energy, this retreat, the 9 tell me is all about planting seeds. Where do you plant seeds? Well, you plant seeds in the earth, so it's dark. That's your darkness. So we've got multiple metaphors going on here. You take the seeds and you plant the seeds into the darkness, and the seeds will grow into flowers or plants or vegetables or fruit, whatever they may be, trees. So this is a multiple seed planting time. And the 13 days are actually 3 sections of time in squares. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. This is what the 9 told me. So you've got 3 squares. The 1, 2, 3, 4 is a square. 5, 6, 7, 8 is a square. 9, 10, 11, 12 is a square because you've got 4 points on each one. And these 3 squares are the 3 sections of time. That's the 12. Now the 13 is the activation for the 12. So it's a ritualistic time period within the numerological presentation and sacred geometry presentation of the Gregorian calendar as simply the tool. It's got nothing to do with the Gregorian calendar. And even after my last video, I've had people telling me I'm reptilian and I'm part of the dark. And I've had people say that I've admitted that I'm part of the false light. I've never, ever admitted I'm part of the false light in any video or interview I've ever done, because I'm not. But anyway, I'm going to get off on a tangent if I go there. So yeah, using the Gregorian calendar does not make me reptilian or dark or of the false light. The Gregorian calendar is the only counting tool that we can utilize in order to find the sacred geometry and the numerology. So we're looking at these 3 squares, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then the 13 powers all this up. That's how the geometry has worked within these 13 days. I'm actually recording this today on the 13th. So the 13 is the revelation and the understanding of the previous 12. I didn't actually get the information from the 9 about the seeds until today, which is the 13th. That's my personal meaningful subjective experience, which you are going through as a starseed, as an awakened individual, is the same thing, but in a myriad of ways, in a multiple different ways. Something would be occurring in those first 12 days, and then on the 13 is the realization or the revelation. Now, that potentially could work globally as well. Will there be, I haven't gone to the end of the 13th yet, will there be a revelation of some kind in some way, astrologically, physically? Well, there's been revelations going on every single day, and that's another thing the 9 said. Every day within these 13 days will be something new. And I don't know about you, but every day in the last 13 days I've found something new. So this isn't necessarily big and global. It isn't always that. Sometimes it is that. But the planting seeds is multi. So we're planting seeds energetically to create the new earth, the new reality we go into, the new timeline. We're planting seeds in the minds of others, in one another, amongst the awakened communities. If they are only awake to one level, then they'll be getting seeds for the next level. If we're awake to full Stargate ascension, we're going to be getting seeds as to where's the next level from that. You know, we go planetary, galactic, cosmic, source, and more creation. There's never, ever a time when seeds can't be planted, but this goes right down to the physical as well, as in advice to plant seeds. They're difficult to get. I'm talking about real physical seeds, vegetable seeds and fruit seeds that could give you food. They're difficult to get hold of. I know, I'm aware that they are being restricted on sales. So those of you who've already planted your gardens and have vegetables and fruits growing in your garden, good on you. You were pretty clever. You understood what was coming on some level, and you've prepared on a physical level. I didn't do that. I did my spiritual preparation and didn't take it down to the physical. If you're in alignment with this and you're not in resistance, don't go into fear and think, oh, Magenta said we've got to get seeds. There's something going on with the food, so we need seeds. I'm not saying that in a fearful way. I am saying that this is part of this structure of planting seeds. So when you plant seeds, you take it down to the physical. You don't have to plant seeds that are fruits and vegetables to give you food. That's a great idea right now, but you don't have to do that. Planting flowers or other forms of seeds will give you some kind of growth, and you're just taking this down to the physical. And you don't have to do it. You don't have to go in the garden and actually plant a seed. You could, if you're in an apartment or a flat, you can plant seeds in little trays in your kitchen. You don't have to do that. You can take all of this as non-physical. What I'm saying is that the planting of the seeds is these 13 days. The revelation of what these 12 days are comes to you on the 13th, in the 13th frequency, in the 13th aspect. It isn't always a day. So any structure of 12 will always have a 13 there. That's what activates the 12. I've spoken about this in, or the 9 have spoken about this in my book, Infinite Helix and the Emerald Flame, talks about the 12 and the 13. In fact, that whole thing is in all of the books in various ways. It's in the Masters of the Matrix, because the hidden aspect to the understanding of the Matrix is the 13th question. And if you've read the book, you'll know what that means. So 3D reality, people are policing one another, social media, information warfare, the Great Awakening is massive, and it's been triggered hugely. It's bigger than any of us realize. I mean, it's just absolutely huge on multiple levels, and it's wonderful for some and really, really challenging for others. And those of us who saw ahead to the Great Awakening, and the Great Awakening's been going on for years, but now it's just like whoosh, you know. Those of us who saw ahead to this time period realized that it wouldn't be easy for some, and we did everything that we could to get this information out as early as possible. If you haven't got this information till now and you are brand new to this, doesn't mean that you've been left behind, doesn't mean you can't catch up. You absolutely can, because this is an energy of light, and light is catching, and it can grow within you at exponential levels. So yes, plant seeds with others. When you give information, give them clues so that they can do their own research. If you want to write up a Q style bit of dialogue, you can. You don't have to do that. When other people do that, I think it's quite funny, but good. It makes me laugh. Sorry. Structures are collapsing. So as we have new growth, we always have removal of old and collapse of structure. If you were to go into a garden and that garden is full of weeds, you need to get rid of those weeds, unless of course you want the weeds. Weeds have a really good positive side to them as well, but I'm using it as a metaphor here. If you want to plant fruit trees and vegetables and flowers, you need to weed the garden. So it's the same with a structure. If there's something new that's being called, it's like new civilization, new world, new economy, new healthcare, new education, on all these levels, then other things have to collapse, other things have to go. So we are seeing structures collapsing. Minds, and I don't mean people are going insane and their entire mind is going to collapse to the point where they are mentally unstable. There's some of that going on, but mostly it's not. Mostly the paradigms and the belief systems are collapsing. New thoughts, new belief systems are coming to the fore. So structures are collapsing as well. Structures that are built on corruption, greed, and very dark reasons. They're just not sustaining. They're not sustaining. They're being seen. And that's how come they can't sustain, because dark structures rely on secrecy in order to sustain. They rely on not being seen, even though they have to show you themselves. So the structures those that create the structures have to show you their plans. They have to show you their blueprints. They do this in many ways. One of the most predominant ways they do this is through media and entertainment and film. I've spoken about this before, but there is a video, yeah, it came out 2 days ago. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch this video. It's called Out of Shadows. Q actually linked this video on one of his drops yesterday. I think the video came out on the 10th or the 11th. Q linked it on the 12th. This video explains what I'm talking about. Is it true? Yes, it's true. I didn't see anything in that video that was false. So in fact, Q said this is the best video, the best documentary of the year. And I mean, there's lots yet to come. But I would agree with him so far. I mean, it was absolutely, when it comes to truth, it was spot on. So that explains everything. That's how they let you know what they are doing. So they're showing you, they're showing you what they're doing. They're saying, look, we're going to do this. If you don't understand what they're saying, that's no problem to them. They've done what they have been told by their Dark Masters. The Dark Masters are saying you need to let them know what you're doing, because it's not going to work if you don't. If you don't let them know what you're doing, it won't work. They have to know, and they also, the dark structures take that as permission. So we're letting you know what we're doing. You haven't really objected to it, so we've got your permission. We can now go ahead and do it. So that's how it's worked for thousands and thousands of years. Yes, before we had TV, they did it in other ways. They did it in multiple ways. But this is breaking down because people are finding out. So they're saying, this is what we're doing. And we are now able to say, hey, hold on a minute. No, I don't want that. Too many people are saying no. I'll get to more of that in a second. So I think I've gone through all of that. The other thing I wrote down here is the brainwashing runs deep, and this is to do with the people that are asleep. Now, I've just explained about the films and the television programs and all the other bombardment of brainwashing. And as I said, you can watch Out of Shadows. It explains all of that. The brainwashing goes further still. What we're looking at here is biowarfare through signals. Don't worry about this. And I'll, you know, if you're with me still, don't worry. I will explain what's happening. There are some signals being put out at the moment and have been for a long time, but they've been sort of ramped up a bit. These are, the 9 show me some form of sound wave or frequency wave that's taken as sound. So what it does is it puts you into a very slight suggestible place, so that the narrative you see matches up with the signal. I'm so sorry, I really don't know what this technology is or how it works, but the signal that's put out puts the brain into a certain state, like a kind of mild hypnosis, if you like. Then when the signal is shown to you, as in television or whatever it may be, it matches in the same place in the brain that the signal touches, and the two merge together. And so the brainwashing runs deep. What that means is when you see something that's being told to you as truth, you're actually in a mild state of hypnosis as you receive it. So you're taking it in onto very deep subconscious levels without realizing. Now, what I would add to that is the indigo code makes you immune, which is why the indigos have never really been brainwashed like everybody else, because it's an immunity. Waking up is an immunity. The minute you see it, it doesn't touch you anymore. It can't. The brain doesn't go into that mode anymore, because what you do is you're looking beyond. So your brain then, you know, links with this sound that's being pulsed out, if you like, but starts to see the truth behind everything. The pulse doesn't affect you when you're an indigo, when you're awake. And those of you who are practicing spiritual practices, yoga, tai chi, any martial art, meditation, light body work, Merkaba work, all of those things, everything the 9 have spoken about in the last 12 years since I got online, anyone who's followed my work and done the work, read the books, you're immune from this. Don't worry, you are immune from this. But this will give you some understanding of what the people who cannot see what you are saying, that they are hypnotized. It's not full hypnosis, it's mild. But that's why they're rebelling against the paradigm that's outside of the narrative, the current narrative, because they're hypnotized. So you have to understand that and try not to be angry with them. Every single person who has undergone that form of brainwashing has a higher dimensional team with them. They will have, if you like, guardian angels, light, and that light is always, always working to free them from it. The cabal groups are playing a dangerous game at the moment because they're telling everyone what they're doing, as they have to or it won't work, but telling everyone what they're doing is making it not work. They have been caught in a paradox. They have been caught in a loop, and they've been caught in a catch-22. The 9 say they did this to themselves. I'm not quite sure yet what that means, but I think it means that the trap they laid for the people is the trap that's trapping them. And again, I can't really kind of fully understand what that means. I think it goes into the legal system as well. So laws they wrote to trap other people are the same laws that are being used against them. And that's where you've got the whole Trump thing going on, because he's taking the laws they created and using them against them now, the very laws which they can't fight against. I mean, take, for example, this whole chloroquine potential coronavirus cure or certainly assistance. As soon as Trump mentioned it, the cabal and the dark team or whatever are trying to suppress that, but they can't because of the patent that's already on it, and it's already been released, and it's already covered by other laws and medical laws. I don't really know them, but basically this same thing is happening with the information as well. So the premise of you need to tell them what you are doing, otherwise it won't work, has now become, if you tell them what you're doing, it won't work. Do you see where they are in catch-22? And they're hoping for a loophole. They're hoping that if we can tell them what we're doing, but not enough to make it work, but not too much so that it doesn't work. So they're desperately, and I mean desperately, treading a very fine line. The problem they have is not so much the people that are waking up to the third dimensional trappings and the third dimensional conspiracies and that level. It's those that are working on the higher levels above that in the spiritual fields. Their ability to see goes much further. When they visualize, when a spiritually aware DNA activated individual visualizes and sees a falsehood, that's put into a collective mind. And that's what's falling into the minds of all the other people. So they're not just waking up because they've seen a video or read a link or seen an article somewhere. They're waking up because of the signals as well. So the cabal are finding it very difficult to find the place where is it that we can tell them what we're doing and have it work without telling them what we're doing too much and have it not work. That tiny little place is so small now, and as we go further on, it's going to disappear, and it's almost disappeared pretty much now. It's very imminent that that place isn't there. I also wanted to mention something I wrote on Facebook, which the 9 said to me. And the 9 said, and this is so important to know because I know people are living in fear because they're looking around and seeing this reality and thinking, you know, this is it. This is the new world order. This is the new world order timeline, and there's nothing we can do. There are stories going around, and these are coming from people who are presenting as psychic and spiritual and channels. Now, I don't know whether they're coming in from the cabal and are false or are getting false information. What I am feeling here is that they're seeing a timeline. And so they're telling the truth for that timeline. But that's not the timeline for the global reality that I am seeing and that I am telling you about, and that I know is the most aligned timeline for our growth. What some people are saying is that Trump and Q and the alliance are all part of another cabal, being controlled by another cabal, and that cabal, when they finally take control, they're going to control us in just the same way as the cabal that we've already got. I can understand where you would come up with that viewpoint, and maybe, as I've said, you're seeing a timeline. This is not, and I repeat, not what the 9 show me. Trump is not being controlled by anybody dark. He's independent. He's taking advice from those who are good and just and full of integrity. Q is part of that team. The only way that Q is going to give you falsehoods is when Q has to give you falsehoods. And Q has to do that in order to protect certain plans and operations that need to go ahead. The 9 have taught me the same, so I know why Q does that, because the 9 have taught me that I have to do that too. So what I would say is, I'm not telling you not to believe other channels and other psychics that are saying this, but it isn't what the 9 tell me. That's all I can say to you. If you want to think that the 9 are some weird, false beings, that's absolutely fine. I'm not telling you that you have to believe what I say. What I am saying is that this is what I see. And this is what I know for my own personal reality, the reality that I am manifesting for myself, and what I see as the global reality for everyone who's coming on that timeline with me. So I would say that the truth for this reality is what I've said. Trump is not being controlled by dark. Neither is the team around him. You can call them a cabal if you want to, but we're part of that. That's why it's an alliance. We're all part of that. Q's patriots, where we go one, we go all. We're the alliance. We're all part of that team. So if that's being controlled, the whole thing, by dark, that doesn't make any sense when you look at the amount of individuals in that structure that have open hearts that can only match with a higher dimensional structure that matches the open heart. So in the reality I'm in, it isn't possible for Trump and the alliance and Q to be part of the dark. That does not compute in the reality I exist within. So I'm just giving you that little bit of information. So going back to those who are feeling afraid and have perhaps listened to people who are saying things like this or similar things or other things that are causing fear. This is what the 9 are saying, and it's very much to do with the collapsing of structures. The 9 said, the situation on your planet at this time is not evidence that the service to self dark factions have won. It is evidence that they have not. Now, lots of people have said, please explain what you mean by this post. So I'm going to. The situation on the planet, virus, global pandemic, lockdown, forced vaccinations, digital microchips on our skin that have information in, all of these dark plots and things that they're putting in the vaccines to control us. And, you know, I'm not going to say it on here, the signals that are above 4G. I'm not going to mention that. All of that makes you think, oh my gosh, they've won. You know, they're taking over. And the 9 is saying the situation on your planet at this time is not evidence that the service to self dark factions have won. It's evidence that they have not. Now, why? Because if they had won, they wouldn't need to do this. They wouldn't need to do it this way. They wouldn't need to do a global pandemic and a global shutdown. They'd be able to do what they're doing in more of a stealth-like way, because as they show us what they're doing, and they tell us what they're going to do, and we don't object to that, and we don't see it, it will work. It's kind of like a dark spell. It's like dark global magic, and it will work for them. It's not working that way anymore. So all of this is like a last ditch attempt. It's like, right, you know, fine. We haven't got this that we wanted, which is number 1, Trump as the president. Oh my goodness. I mean, that was just the worst thing for them. Trust me on this. I see it so clearly. And I'm sorry if you don't see it. And I know many of you do. Trump becoming president was the worst thing for the cabal. It sent them into an absolute frenzy. And the stuff that they have done to try to get him out, you wouldn't believe what they have done on all levels. And it just has not worked. Why? Because the energetic on this planet is a positive polarized frequency, and anything coming from corruption and greed and hatred and evil and darkness and negative service to self polarity is not sustaining. This shutdown and virus is evidence of them losing, because it's like, right, we've done everything we can, and Trump, we couldn't get him out. Then there were lots of other little things over here in the UK. Brexit. Now, that's not as big as Trump. It didn't really upset them as much as Trump being president, but it was not what they wanted, because their goal was to go forward and create bigger and bigger superstates. It was not for those countries to move out of the state. It was the opposite, and they were not happy about Brexit. As I said, it's not such a big thing because the presidency in America is the #1 spot. Now, I don't mean this when it comes to humanity. I don't mean that he's the top guy and he's the most important, most special person on the planet. That isn't what I'm saying. Energetically, when it comes to the collapse of the old structure and the rebuilding of the new structure and the ascension process, and I've said this so many times, one looks at the planet as if it were a flat disk, and I'm not talking about flat Earth, but fine if you want to see it that way, that's fine. There is some truth to that paradigm, which is all in infinite helix, but no, my timeline, the Earth is a sphere, but anyway, that's going off on a tangent. So let's look at the Earth as a flat disk, and right in the very middle is America. They're the central point. So therefore, the political structure, the person at the top of that political structure is the #1 spot. That's what I mean by that. Is he, does Trump have to answer to other people? Of course he does. But the cabal wanted that spot. That's what this is about. It's like, it doesn't matter if we don't get the prime minister in this country or the presidency in that. We're going to try and get all the top spots of the political, but we must have the presidency in America. That is what they said to themselves and were told. We must ensure the presidency. And they didn't. They didn't. So that's what all this is about. That's what the 9 mean when they say it's evidence that they have not. Now, do they still want that presidential spot? Yes, they do. It's a massive part of their focus, and they will do everything within their power to get one of their own, one of their group, one of their family in the presidency. This is so important because it's linked with everything. So I'm not saying that the virus was created because they wanted to get Trump out. I'm not saying that. But when you look at that statement, there's a little bit of truth in there somewhere. What we are actually looking at here is a virus that was partly created deliberately, but partly natural. It didn't quite go in the way they wanted it to. It's not as virulent as they wanted it to be. It's not quite worked in the way that they planned it. Everything's kind of gone a bit skew with, if you like. It's gone a bit weird, not what they wanted, and they've done everything that they can to try to mitigate any damage. And when I say damage, I don't mean people dying from the virus, I mean damage from their perspective. But the number one has always been to knock Trump off the top spot and get one of their family, their team in that place. So they're trying their hardest to co-opt the virus that kind of went a bit wrong in order to capitalize on what they want most of all. So it's kind of a massive hijack, really, rather than the reason. However, the Alliance have done the same thing. The Alliance have thought, right, how can we capitalize on this? And they've done the same thing, headed by Trump and others. It's not just Trump, there are others there too. I'm not completely sure, but I think it could be Putin as well, with him as a team. I'm not 100% sure about that, but the energies are looking like it could be that. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give away any intel here, really. So that's enough to say that there are potentially others. We don't know who this alliance is or who's in that group, and we aren't really supposed to know all of the members. So that's how that whole story about Trump being, you know, manipulated by a darker cabal, and when they take over we're just going to be in the same situation, that cannot possibly be the case when you look at all of the different nuances. I mean, are you saying that every single channel and psychic is also being manipulated? Okay, fine, you could go that far, but that is not what I see. It is not what I know, and it isn't about what you see or you know. It's about what you are creating. We live in a creational universe. So I'm going to say again what the Nine said to me. The situation on your planet at this time is not evidence that the service to self dark factions have won. It's evidence that they have not. So I've explained that. I do have lots more to talk about. I'm going to put that into a second video because this has gone on quite long. But what I will be talking about in the next video, or possibly two videos, are dreams that I have had. I had a dream last night and a dream the night before. Now, I've just explained how being isolated and being removed from the society at large in a physical sense creates an exponential raise in a light body sense, so that dreams are going to become more prophetic and more connected than ever before. And I have had two profound dreams. One of them was actually an out-of-body experience fully in the astral body, and the other was a dream that was very lucid and real. I'm going to talk about those two because they're very connected to everything. The next video or two will be more of an esoteric spiritual nature. So this one's got a lot of 3D stuff in it. So if you are someone who's just woken up to this, I hope you followed me. But yes, I'm going to now record the rest of the information into a separate video. So thank you for listening to this. Thank you so much. I really hope that, you know, this has made sense. And just want to let you know that I'm there with all of you. As I said in the last video, we're going through this together. Where we go one, we go all, if you want to use that lovely phrase. Unity consciousness, that's what this is all about. So I'll be back very soon. Love you all. Namaste.